Boom, 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 clack, boom, 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 clack. All right, sorry. We're still working on getting the intro music sorted out. I reached out to someone and they said that they were busy, so they couldn't make intro music. So that's the intro for today's podcast. Today we have our first guest, which I'm very excited about. We have Maxx Chewning, who, if you're not familiar with, he is a YouTuber. He's been making YouTube videos longer than I have, since like 2013, 2014. And we talked about a lot of stuff. There's some drama in this one, which you guys will get into. But huge thanks to Maxx for coming on the podcast, my first ever guest. And so, let me know what y'all think. If you're watching this on YouTube, leave a comment. If you're watching on Spotify, you can do the Q&A thing. Let's see, what question should I ask? The question of the podcast will be, what other guests should I have? I don't know. Let me know. Thank you all so much for listening. Thank you so much for watching on YouTube. I appreciate it. And yeah, without further ado, let's just get into it. Dude, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. You are the first guest that I have on. The name is very creative. I called it the O2B podcast. I know it's a very, very creative name, but seriously, Maxx, thank you so much for being on.
Absolutely, dude. I have a question for you to start out. Okay. The podcast is, out of everyone, and I don't know if you reached out to me because you saw that I subscribed to your new podcast. Is that it?
So I work with someone. Her name's Rachel, and she's like my producer. She just helps me with everything, everything. And she noticed, she didn't even want me to bring this up, but she noticed that you had subscribed. And so it was her idea. She brought it up, and I was like, no. I was like, there's no way. He's too busy. I don't think that he would want to be on. And she didn't tell me when she was bringing it up. She didn't tell me that she noticed that you had subscribed. So I was in my head, I was like, why would you think that he would be down? And then she brought it up, and I was like, okay, well, I guess maybe that could be interesting. And the reason that I really liked that idea is because with this podcast, obviously most of my content online is about weight loss and talking about the fitness industry and the weight loss industry. And I wanted this podcast, I'm not against doing content like that, but I wanted this podcast to be more than that. You know what I'm saying? And so it just it made sense, but also didn't in my head. And so that's literally why. How did you even find it?
Bro, I don't know if I don't really talk about this kind of stuff, but I'm even way back in the day, I'm a consumer of content, a consumer of YouTube. I have, ever since I found about YouTube in 2006 or whatever, and started following a couple of people, but definitely when I started getting into it is I love watching. I'm watching videos all day, whether I'm working and then I get distracted from work because I'm I really want to pay attention. And so not only am I consuming content for ever, but the community we come from, the fitness influencers, the golden era of the full day of eating videos, I am still, it's not like I unsubscribed from everyone that I followed, because whenever I tell the story of back then, I say that there was only 10 or 15 people, so everyone knew about everyone commented about everyone's videos. So I mean, you and the circle of Brian, Chelsea, all those people, I still follow, and I watch your videos, bro. I know you got into the the commentary stuff, which isn't as much of my stuff, but vlogs you put out, if you or people like Tony Doe, if he randomly uploads after 5 years, I'm like, oh shit, I watch the videos. So I love seeing what people are up to. It's a shame that most people have I guess maybe lost interest in it or on to different things, but no, I love the original community, and I watch your content, bro. I'm like a lurker from far from a lot of people.
Yeah, no, geez, you're gonna make me emotional because I feel the same way, right? Okay. Random question: Do you have ADD?
I've never been diagnosed, but I think I don't even know what the categorization of what would trigger it, but just based on what people say about it, and then me as an individual and how my brain works and how distracted I get, I probably do.
Okay.
Also, what is the difference between, it's a hyper disorder and then just disorder?
Yeah, so
There's a difference, right?
attention deficit disorder, and then there's attention deficit hyperactive disorder. I think from what I understand, they've kind of they've just all made it one thing.
Yeah.
And so they don't really differentiate between them. The only reason I ask is because the way that you explain stuff and how you do things reminds me of myself. And I was diagnosed like when I was a child, when I was like 6 or 7.
I think when I was like a kid, I got prescribed from my parents because I think they were like a crazy person. Well, I'm gonna try to record a screen just in case you can use this as maybe it's better. I don't know. That's not gonna work. Never mind. Sorry, you can cut that part out. Yeah. So when I was a kid, I was a crazy person, and I remember for a short period of time, I don't remember how old I was, but my parents took me to the doctor, and then I got prescribed like Ritalin and Paxil, and I'm assuming those are maybe similar to Adderall.
Yeah,
it's like kind of in that same realm of drugs, but I had like a weird reaction to it, and I like got like I was like thrown up in the bathroom and stuff. So that was like a short-lived experience, at least from what I can remember. It was very short. It wasn't like a months and months and months or even years. I think it was like a month maybe. So yeah, no, I've never gotten diagnosed like ever.
It's so it's funny because the reason I was smiling is because I was prescribed Ritalin when I was very young, and I was very I was very bad at taking pills, and so I wouldn't take them unless I put them in ice cream, and so that's how I would take the
You're
pills.
Like a dog, dude.
Literally, like, and the thing is, like, they were tiny, but it was like in my brain. I think because I was a child, I didn't want to take them. I would find any excuse to like, I can't swallow it, right? But I was only on it for about a month because for me, the reaction was it turned me into what I felt like was like a zombie. Like took everything about me and just numbed it all down, and it just made me really uncomfortable. But I was on it for like probably 6 months, and then I kind of stopped.
I mean, I've taken. I say it's like a casual recreational, but like there's been probably 3 times in my life where someone's been like, "Hey, do you want an Adderall for this like day of work?" Or like I've been at like an expo before one time, and someone gave me one. They're like, yeah, and I was like, I don't think I need it, and like. But like the 2 or 3 times I've taken Adderall, I can definitely say that I notice a difference. Like because it was more of at expos when I took one. I remember one time and I didn't like it. I took it once. I remember being laser focused, but then I realized right when it was like going away, like when it was like fading off. And then I've taken Adderall before when I work, or like again like twice, and that day it was like I was just silent, like working, whatever. But it was just weird. I don't know. I guess I don't really like the idea of something controlling me like that, because I think that because of my scatterbrainness, as I'm not like an organized person. I'm not a very structured person. I don't have a schedule. I don't like have a calendar telling me what I'm doing each day. Every day I forget stuff that I should just write it down. But it's just like how I work, and it just works for me. Even though I forget stuff, I like screw up a bunch, but it's just like it's natural for me. So it just I'd feel weird to take something to make me more focused. I'm like, yeah, but that's not how I got to this point. I don't. So yeah, long-winded answer, but no, I've never been prescribed. I've never gotten classified, but probably.
Interesting. I'm not here to diagnose anyone. I just was a question that was interesting to me. So bringing up the OG-ness of the fact that we've both been doing this for a while. When did you start your channel?
I want to say 2013, because it was I started. Well, if you go like oldest to newest of my channel, you're gonna see videos from like 2011. But I don't consider that. I feel like everyone has like an actual starting point they consider. Because I used to be on like bodybuilding.com forums, and I would just film. I started a YouTube channel with, it's funny because I started it with just my name. And then when all the social media started taking off, everyone had like, obese to beast and like, all these like names and stuff. And I was like, damn it, mine's just my name. No, and it turns out that's what everyone wants at the end. But like at the time, everyone had like fitness or something. But anyway, I started my YouTube channel, and I would just film like my PR lifts, because I was running a powerlifting program called Jim Windler 531. So I was just filming my top lifts for that cycle or whatever, and I would just take those 20-second clips and YouTube to host them essentially, and then put them on a forum. So I guess my channel technically started in 2011, but I didn't start making videos until I graduated college, which was 2013.
Yeah. Man, that's crazy. Yeah, so my channel started 2014. I think that's when I started posting as Obese Beast. Like I started on Instagram and then went from there. But yeah, so fun fact, there was probably about a year where you genuinely were my favorite YouTuber. Like I watched.
You're like, not anymore, but one time.
Well, there's a story which we talked about a little bit before, but like every video, I genuinely like, and it wasn't even like, oh yeah, it's my favorite. It was like my favorite by far. Like I watched every video, like everything, right? And so
thanks, man.
It's so again, that's why it's so funny how that you ended up being the.
Can I ask you, not in like a boasting way, but like why did you specifically like? Because when the time of you probably liking the channel the most, it was very 90% just like fitness and maybe a little bit of my personality, but like what was different about that me?
Your personality, I think it reminds me a lot of myself, and you were more comfortable being yourself than I was being myself in videos, like on videos, right? And so I think it was not in like a jealousy and like I'm mad at him, but it was like, man, I aspired to be that, because like we've already been talking about, like a lot of the things you do remind me of myself. And so I just saw that, and it was aspirational as well, because for people that don't know, Maxx is incredibly strong. And that was like another part of it, was like, man, I thought it was really cool. And like, don't take this the wrong way, but I think the fact that you didn't look like, you weren't super huge and like jacked, because for me, like it's different, but like I have the loose skin. So like, I always felt I'll never be the most aesthetically looking person, but it was like, it was aspirational to me, and I obviously I just really liked your personality. I mean, I still do. I think you're very funny, so that was part of it. And then your videos, they were like different, and at the time, I've learned through my ADD, I have these things called hyperfixations, and when I'm hyper focused on something, like it just takes over my life. And at the time, it was like fitness and watching like basically the types of videos that you made at the time, which were like full day of eatings, just kind of vlog day in the life stuff. And so that was like my hyperfixation at the time. And in my head, you were doing that the best, and you just reminded me of myself, but also different. Like obviously we come from literally the opposite sides of the spectrum, but that didn't really matter to me as much.
It's interesting hearing like stuff like, I know it's like we're harping back on like the ADD thing, but even like the word of like a classification of like hyperfixation, it's like a definition of like that is a result of, maybe, ADD or something. But it's interesting because you're like, oh, it's like fitness. And for me, in my head, I'm like, oh yeah, like I was hyperfixated on Jeeps for a very long time. It was the only thing I cared about. And I'm like, but is that a diagnosis of a thing? Or it's just like, oh, you just have a really like doing this. Like it's an interesting way to look at it, but that's cool, man. I appreciate that. Yeah. It's wild that 10 years later, you as well, but we're still here, still making content, because there's a lot of people that didn't make it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so kind of going into, you said like, well, am I not your favorite anymore? And so so there was this thing, and I wanted to bring this up. So full disclosure, we talked about this a little bit before, because I didn't want Maxx to feel like I was like, all right, like, that's not what this is about at all. It's more, I think, speaks about myself and how I am a very sensitive person. But so again, I just want to go back to that. Younger John, Maxx is my favorite YouTuber. And so I was watching, there was a podcast that you were on, or video. I don't remember if it was a podcast or just like a video. I don't really remember.
It was probably a video back then.
Yeah. And you were with other people. We don't need to bring up who it is. That really isn't important. But it was like a round table, people just talking, right? And my friend Brian got brought up because these people, from my perception, I could be wrong, feel free to correct me, they didn't like him that much. And so they would, like make fun of him, or they just didn't like him. And I was very much so connected, especially at this time. Me and Brian, like we made videos together almost exclusively. Like almost every video I made, Brian was in. Almost every video he made, I was in. And at this time, I think I was getting ready to compete. So this was like 2016 area. I was getting ready to compete in a physique show. And so a lot of my content at the time was basically me being shirtless, like doing posing practice. And there was like a joke that was made. Again, it's been so long, it's hard for me to even remember exactly what happened. But I remember watching that and like hearing, I think this was the first time I ever heard me being talked about in a video. It was very strange. It was very surreal for me. And I just remember, and this is where it's like, okay, John, you can't expect this, right? I remember feeling like, why didn't Maxx like stand up for me? And like, why did he just like let this be said, right? And so at that moment, I remember it hurt so much because like I guess you could call it like a parasocial relationship, because I looked up to you so much, you know, like I'm saying, you were literally my favorite YouTuber, right? And so I just got so hurt that then in my head, this is embarrassing to admit, and again, I appreciate you even letting me bring this up because it's not something that's probably fun, but I felt like I was like, Maxx, like he must hate me, and like I felt like I don't know, like it was like I turned into like, all right, so now Maxx is against me and he doesn't like me and I can't watch his videos anymore. And like that, it was just this crazy shift. But so that's why, like when I said like you were my favorite, it was because I had this thing that felt like a huge deal that honestly looking back, this is why I wanted to bring it up. I absolutely overblew the situation. But this is just how I am too still. I am very sensitive, and hearing myself being talked about was so weird, I think. And then having the person that I looked up, I don't want to say the most, I'm not like trying, like, but like someone that I really respected. And I was just like, again, I don't think you even really said anything, but it was like in my head, I was like, why did he defend me? But looking back, I'm like, why would he?
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, you know, especially not that I say I talk a bunch of shit in private, but like, you know, I think a lot of times when you're in environments with other people, I like to think that I'm someone who like I don't really talk shit about people. I don't, unless someone's like specifically wronged me, right? Because for me, it's more, and usually at that point, I'm just like, you're dead to me anyway, so I don't need to waste my breath on you. But I think it's, you know, it probably comes from a lot of immaturity and having a lot of like growing up to do. And I think in certain situations, you can get into rooms with people where maybe someone else is ragging on someone or a group of people or whatever, and it's like easier. Even if you don't have a problem with that person, it's almost easier to just laugh along with the bullies or the people kind of poking fun than to do the, you know, right thing. Because, you know, it's probably just easier at that time. But what, you know, stories like this show me, which is, you know, obviously, and you and I talked about this at an expo, maybe a year later or something, and kind of, you know, dissolve the issue. But I think it's a prime example of, you know, not only obviously words mean something to people, but it's also like, you know, you never know how your reaction to something that is in the public eye is going to be perceived by individuals, because you don't know who's watching, you don't know the relationship that they have with you, you know, and everything can be taken out of context. And probably in that situation, it wasn't out of context. It was probably just laughing along with people making fun of other people. And then I'm just as bad as all these people. So yeah, I mean, there's a lot of learning experiences to gain from that. And yeah, I'm glad that when you came up to me, and the timeframes are all off for me, but I remember you coming up to me at the expo, and I remember you being really bothered by the situation, and you know, we kind of squashed it. Then I'm sure I said something like I had no idea that what I, you know, I had no idea what I said, whatever, you know, but yeah, either way, it's good learning experience, and it's like a first-hand type of thing.
Yeah, no, it's one of those things that, yeah, we did talk about it. I think it was like a couple years later. And I remember like how I felt. Like I was, because you were at, I don't remember what booth you were, but like there was like a big line of people like waiting, and I just like walked up and like I think you saw me and you like waved, and so I like basically I cut this line of people, but now there's this line of people watching me interact with you, right? And they probably, because they couldn't hear us talking, but I was very emotional. Like I had like tears in my eyes. I don't think I full cried, all right? I just, you know, just put it out there. But like I had like, it was like, I could tell that you saw that I was like, you were probably like, what the heck is going on, you know? But like, I was very emotional, and then I'm just in the back of my head, I'm like, all these people are like, what is going on right now? Like, why is he so like, you know? But yeah, that experience really taught me as well. Like when I brought it up to you at the expo, how insanely powerful you can make something in your head. And like, this is something I've struggled with my whole life, is like building narratives that aren't necessarily there. Because again, like literally what you brought up, because I've brought up this this thing that happened to other people, and or like one of the people was my girlfriend, who I think is one of the like a very smart person, and she's very level-headed, and she was like, well, you have to think like, did in that room, do you think he wanted to like stand up? Like that's going to be super awkward. Like there's cameras rolling. Like, is that something that it's just, that's not easy to do. And so it's just like, yeah, it was like, I turned it into this thing that just was bigger than it needed to be. And the reason that I wanted to bring this up was that I honestly, it's something that I am embarrassed of, you know, like that let it affect me so much, because it was like, to you, it just wasn't, you didn't even think much about it, right? Which I think is the pretty normal response. Like, I don't think I would probably be in the same boat, right? Like, why would you think that I was such a huge fan of like your videos? Like, you know, you don't think that stuff, right?
Yeah, but I think it's good too. I think, you know, because, you know, you coming up to that expo, probably like when you left talking to me, just who I am as a person, it probably wasn't just like a, okay, hi, like, what's your name? Like, to the next person, it was probably like, you know, oh shit, like that thing like is going to be in my brain of like, hey, Max, like you even laughing at like some jokes of other people, like maybe I shouldn't, you know, no one should do these kinds of things regardless. But I think it's almost a good thing to let people know of like when situations are affect you in any sort of type of way. And even if it's, you know, even if in your mind you're overthinking it maybe, or in hindsight you were like, oh, it probably wasn't as serious, but I still think that, you know, you could have had a completely different perception of me. I could have never realized that you didn't like me for any reason. And it would have created this, you know, more unique, bad kind of relationship between us without me even knowing. Whereas you bringing it up, even if it, you know, potentially was something that you know, and again, in hindsight, maybe it was like, oh, it wasn't that big of a deal, but it was important enough to you then to talk to me about it, and affected you that much that, you know, it probably changed my path, you know, ever so slightly as to, oh shit, okay, like, oh, I remember that event. I remember, okay, he's telling me that it bothered him. Oh, okay, Max, like, bad Max, don't do that again, kind of thing, you know? So I think as long as, you know, you improve and become a better person and evolve, and hopefully that generally happens with time, maturity, age. But yeah, no, I mean, I'm as weird as it is, but I'm glad you came up to me back then, because, you know, I had no idea that it was an issue. And then I'm glad that after that point, you know, you at least maybe even at the time you still weren't, you know, fully back in the, you know, the maxi pad zone, but like, you know, it maybe like solved that problem a little bit. And then now, if before this conversation, which we, you know, we don't keep in contact that much. But if anyone ever mentions like, oh, you know, Max, like, you wouldn't just be like, yeah, he's a piece of shit, you know? That at this stage of my life, I want the least amount of people possible. I care so much about what people think of me, in a way of, I want everyone to, when they talk about me to other people, when they think about me, I want them literally, this is going to sound goofy, but I'm like, I want them in their head to be like, Max is a cool guy. Like, Max is a cool guy. He's a good guy. He's a good person. He has good morals. He has good ethics. He does good things. And he's super funny and good looking, you know, like all of those things. And it's so, it's important to me that I'm liked, because I think it's a representation of, it literally is a representation of who I am. So, yeah, I think it's a good thing.
Yeah. No, I don't want to keep like harping on this, but I appreciate you even letting me bring that up because
yeah, dude. Podcast title: I confronted my bully Maxx Chewning. Yeah, Maxx Chewning, the internet bully.
Gone wrong or something like that. Okay, so kind of taking a step back. So when you first decided, again, this is kind of like a question you've probably answered a million times, but I do want to get back to like some normal stuff. When you decided, like, you know, in 2011, you were kind of just posting like lifting clips. What made you want to be like, I'm going to make YouTube videos? Like, was there a certain person that kind of inspired you?
Nick Wright, NWB.
Mm-hmm.
He's I still give he was the Dr. Dre and I was the Eminem, you know. I needed that little push. But no, basically the year before, probably about a year or two before I started officially making YouTube fitness content, I was consuming content, right? And I remember the first video that I ever made that was just, it wasn't it wasn't a video that I was like, I'm going to start making videos. It was, I got influenced by Matt Ogus to purchase an Inzer belt. You know, he was, I feel like he should get stock in that company because I feel like he probably converted everyone back then to get these Inzer belts. And then when he was talking about them, I started like going on YouTube and looking up a bunch of reviews, and I would watch videos of people doing reviews. And the way that my brain worked, and my friends thought I was stupid, but like I was in my head, I go, well, like I got influenced, I got convinced to buy this belt because of these videos that I watched. And I watched a bunch of videos, and I was glad that I was able to find these videos of people talking about it. Maybe I should make a video talking about my personal thoughts on this belt, because maybe someone else like me wants to buy a belt, and maybe I can give a different kind of spin of how my brain was working on it. So my first real video was this Inzer belt video. So that's like what I consider my first YouTube video, which is, if you go back, I'm like very monotone. I'm like, yeah, I like the belt a lot. And then I got more goofy over as time went on. But yeah, from there, I'd always watched the generation that was like slightly before me. So, you know, the Hodge twins, Christian Guzman,
Chris Jones.
Chris Jones, like, did I say like twin muscle workout and stuff? Like I watched all these people, and then I would watch Nick Wright, and I would watch everyone that I could find.
Yep.
Because I was obsessed with it. And then Nick Wright, who still does live in Rhode Island, which is not too far from Richmond, Virginia, where I was from. He, I guess, broke up with his girlfriend or something, and his cousin actually went to my school, and he like tweeted. I followed him on Twitter, and his Nick Wright. I followed Nick Wright on Twitter, and he tweeted out, was like, I'm moving to Richmond, Virginia, for the summer to live with my cousin because like he went through a bad breakup. It just, you know, is like, where should I go work out? And back then it was like you could tweet at someone and be like, let's meet up, and it was like, all right, cool. So I remember like messaging him, or I'd have to maybe I would find the message, or maybe I just tweeted at him and was said like, hey, you should come lift at my school gym. It's cool. And by the way, I'm a fan of the channel, but like I'm actually, I tried to like qualify myself, because I was like, I actually work out. Like, I'm not just like a fanboy who's gonna like ruin your workout. Like, I think I'm strong. Like, I'm into this fitness thing. And we met up, and that's how our relationship started, with just like gym, and then we would get Chipotle together or something, like after a couple whatever. And then he found out that I could deadlift a bunch of weight, and I looked like a little twig. And I started being on his channel, and then he's like, you should start making videos. And then it just kind of snowballed from there. So I still put Nick Wright was the person that kind of gave me the push to like actually make videos.
Dude, that is so interesting, because I have a similar story, but it was Brian was, you know, Brian wasn't as like, at that time, Nick Wright was like one of the most popular. He
had 30,000 subscribers.
Yeah,
I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah, it was huge back then too. Like
him and like Scott Herman were the only people, man.
Yeah, and so, but Brian did the same thing for me. Like, basically helped me start, and he was the one that pushed me. And so it's funny that like, yeah, there was like that generation a little bit before when we started, and then, you know, it was almost like most people that started had like someone there to help them kind of start. That's so.
I just liked I liked watching all these people. I would watch Matt Ogus, and just, I mean, like Chris Lovato. I would watch everyone I could. I was, even back then, like even to now, I'm like, I check YouTube subscriptions, my subscriptions, like all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, damn, I wish more people would post videos, like I just I love consuming YouTube. And yeah, it's wild that the thing that I liked consuming would turn into me trying to figure it out. And then that would be one of the single-handed things that would change my entire trajectory of life, like by a long shot, not just, oh, my life got a little cooler. It's like, no, this changed everything. Yeah. Everything. I would not be in Texas right now. Like, I have no idea what I'd be doing.
Dude, yeah, I've said the same thing. Literally, like, if it wasn't for YouTube and just, I guess, social media in general, but I mean, YouTube is I've never really made any money from Instagram, right? But like, if it wasn't for like YouTube, I'd be probably working, just a 9 to 5, probably starting from minimum wage and then just working my way up, because I went to college for a year and I dropped out. I went for music because I play drums. And then I ended up taking a class that one of the prerequisites was you had to learn how to read music. And I was like, well, I can't do that. And so I decided.
You just got to be like Nick Cannon and drumline. Yeah. And just memorize everything.
Just feel the music. So I feel the same exact way. Like, it really has changed the trajectory of my life, and I am very appreciative. But there has been like certain things that I've struggled with. And I think like one of the things that I wonder if you've had this issue, but like I actually talked about this I posted a video, I think today, the day that we're recording this, where I was like talking about, I personally have struggled with like finding out who I am as a person versus who Obese to Beast is.
Yeah.
Do you get what I'm saying?
I'm trying to look. I remember seeing your video.
It's kind of it's like a clickbaity, like, what I've been going through kind of thing, from back in the day, like one of those types of videos.
Did you post it today?
Yeah.
Why is it not on I remember seeing it on my phone. Oh, no, it's right in the center. Yeah. I lost myself. Opening up my recent struggle.
Yeah.
See?
Yeah.
I see, dude. Subscribe.
So that's like something that I recently especially have been struggling with, I think, because I have been doing this for so long. Like, it's been a third of my life, really, right? I'm 31, and I've been doing it for about 10 years. We're getting there. And is that something that you struggled with at all? Or would you say that hasn't been something that you've struggled with?
What do you mean? Like identifying with something that's not YouTube?
Yeah, sorry, I didn't kind of go in. So like the thing that I've been struggling with recently is like,
yeah, see, I haven't watched the video yet.
I know.
I know what you're struggling with.
Separating John from like Obese to Beast. And what I mean by that is like doing like, if I make a decision, am I making this decision because it's what John wants, me as a person, or is it because that's what Obese to Beast should do?
You'll never know, bro. Yeah, I mean, I guess I don't really like sit around and think about it, but it's definitely things that I've thought about. Yeah, I mean, ever since, I don't know at what point in my YouTube career I like fully transitioned to like document my life essentially rather than just my fitness journey and then some things here and there. Whereas now I mean, everything I do, I film it. Mm-hmm. And it's such like an ingrained part. And I don't know when that hard kind of transition over to like really into the vlogs. Whereas now it's such a part of my life that it feels weird to not film. And yeah, it's like everything I do in my life, I'm like, wait, like how my brain works is like, so if I go do anything, first thing that processes in my brain, I'm like, wait, have I done that before on video? If not, oh man, I should really get my camera because this is content. Like, so it's like I start thinking about things in content ways. But I think where you're trying to say, Obese to Beast, John, and then John, but like as much as you can over time make those the same person, then it's really it doesn't affect me as much anymore because now it's just like a part of who I am and I don't let one overpower the other. And I know when to film, I know when not to film. I know when I want to save some memories for, just me or whoever I'm with, or something that I want to document so I can look back on it or have the audience, feel some type of way about it. And, I think it's a balance thing, but I think you'll never stop thinking about content and social media. It just kind of comes with the territory, especially when you're someone like us who has been doing it for a long time. If you talk to people who started social media 8 months ago and have 3 million followers, they're gonna be like, yeah, you can't even relate to them. Like they can't relate to you, even if they've been for a year. Like it's a different landscape when you've been doing it for how long we have, as to like it's ingrained into who you are. So yeah, I think it's something that you'll never fully escape from, but it's more about finding synergy and balance between the two,
Yeah, I think you've done that better than me. I think the issue that, and I bring this up in the video, this is why I'm bringing it up, but like I think the issue that I had was I kind of overcorrected. Like I had some experiences where people, like, I felt like they knew too much about me, and like they ended up like reaching out to exes of mine and like messaging them and saying just like really stuff that really made me uncomfortable. And so I kind of overcorrected, and I was like, I'm not going to share really much about my life at all. And that's when I started doing more commentary videos, because I was able to continue to make videos but separate it from myself. You get what I'm saying? But I think I made a mistake in basically going full into that and not sharing who I am as a person, because I've been really lucky that like my audience and the people that watch my stuff have always been really receptive to whenever I share, like, oh, I'm doing art right now, or whatever the thing is. Right now it's tennis, and I've had a lot of people message me like, oh, that's awesome, I played tennis in high school or whatever. And I think I overcorrected, and I feel like you have done a good job of like basically who you are on video is that's just Max, like obviously I think everything's a little different. Like I'm not 100% myself in videos. But like, I think I really overcorrected to where I was like, I don't want to share any personal information at all.
Yeah. Social media, posting your life's kind of an interesting dynamic. I always tell people, especially those who have met me, I think there's probably less than 1 or 2% of people that have met me and had a bad experience. I think it's so beyond rare that anyone would get anything that isn't what they see on video. I think the only difference in real life is I curse more in real life, and I like crank my personality up like 20% on my YouTube videos, but I say I make random noises and say weird shit like when the camera's not even on. So it's like I'm still the same person. And then finding the balance of like filming is such a struggle, because you want to share your life and you want to share everything. So then the problem that you get is, again, some of these parasocial relationships where if you decide to not film something, then people who are super think that you owe them something because you've been showing so much. They're like, you're hiding this. You're a piece of crap for hiding this from us. And then everything you do is scrutinized and over. This happens to me still on a daily basis, is whether I film anything or post anything on Instagram, people assume they know the entire story about what's going on. And they either think I'm an idiot for what I'm doing, or I don't know. And it just comes to the territory, and you're never going to have unless you have an audience of like 50 people, and like, they're very normal, level-headed individuals. But the more and more you grow, you're going to get in people who, again, think that you deserve to show everything. If you don't show something, you're hiding. It's an uphill battle on that. Like, so I think you're never going to get over trying to share enough, trying not to overshare, trying to defend yourself when you didn't share certain things, rumors coming up of why you probably didn't film that because this is happening, when in reality it's not that at all. And it's a beast no matter what.
Yeah. So kind of switching gears, I wanted to talk about full day of eatings, because that was like,
I'm the king, baby.
Yeah. How many do you know what number you're at?
I think I could tell you honestly. I definitely did over 100.
Oh yeah, no, I know that,
because I remember hitting the 100. Here's 107. Here's 113. Just to give you an idea, 113 was 5 years ago.
Yeah.
So, 121 was 4 years ago. I think I got up to maybe close to 150. But that was the jam. Every Sunday was a day eating video.
Trust me, I remember. Like, it was. I looked forward to it so much, and so I'm just. I'm curious, what was that like? Like, so you put up the first one, right? And was the response like immediately you were like, I'm going to continue doing this? Because I mean, it got out of control to where it was like, at least for me, it was like the highlight of my week was like watching the full day of eating video.
It was simpler. I like to say I was absolutely not the person who like started first person to start through doing them. I think I just stuck with it and made it my thing the longest and the most consistent out of anyone. No, it's like, I thought it was, it started, the full day of eatings videos, they started with a purpose of showing that you could fit in the things you love and probably things you shouldn't maybe having as much of, but it's like, look how shredded I am. I'm still eating, gummy bears, like, and it was more of like to help people. And again, it's hard because people either take it super literal or they don't. So then they're yelling at you for eating cereal or something. But I'm like, the idea was to show you can look a certain way, you can make strength gains, whatever. I wasn't in the weight loss category. I was in the trying to weight gain category, muscle, and just gain physical weight because I was a lot smaller. And it was just to show you that you could eat the things you like to eat and still make progress if you followed this kind of structure. And then there's more depth to it of micros and macros and fiber and all these things. But so it started with a purpose, right? It started with teaching people how to do it. But then after like the first 5 or 10, which actually, if I don't have the out of the first 10 videos, I think there's like 5 that I've like deleted because one was like a video my job made me delete, and then some of them I just delete. I don't know. So the first couple aren't actually there. But then it turned into this. The response was so good, and at the time YouTube didn't require. It was simpler times. You could upload simpler videos. Because there wasn't as much people to watch. There was only like 10 of us, there was only like 15 of us. And it started being this thing that not only was I enjoyed filming it, I was putting out, because for the first like 4 years of my videos, I was putting out 4 YouTube videos a week. Mm-hmm. I would put out Monday morning, Tuesday evening, Thursday morning, and then Sunday morning. It'd be like Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Sunday. Sunday was always day of eating video because I could just film them the day before. I'm like, I do this already. It's easy to film, and it was easy. And then it evolved into like the idea. If you randomly stumbled on a day of eating video past like 30, you would be like, this guy is an idiot and he's just like eating terrible shit. But it turned into this like inner circle meme thing that it was more like I made it my goal in every single day of eating video that one thing that I ate was going to be something different that I've never eaten before. I've never had made this recipe before. I've never gone to this restaurant before. I've never had this snack before. So I was like, every video will have one thing that is like, I've never had it, or like the channel's never had it. So it was always something new. And it was just I think it was like a ritual or like a routine. People were like, Sunday's day of eating videos. And then after, six glorious years of posting that and shoving it down people's throats, no pun intended, it ran its course as social media started getting more popular and more saturated. But it's funny that like it was just something I like to do, and then it became like a thing. I still get comments to this day of like, man, I loved your day of eating videos. And it's wild because there's nothing cool. I'm just filming I don't know what it was, but.
No, it to the point that you made talking about like at the beginning, it was about like kind of showing people that you can have XYZ thing. That's one of the things that really helped me at the start was learning, because when I first started like losing weight and then I lost the majority of my weight before knowing what a macro was. I didn't really know that much. I started about as ignorant as you could be about nutrition, right? Yeah. And I think everyone did. Yeah. And I started learning through, Brian was someone that taught me a lot, but also like through watching, honestly, some of your videos, it was the ideas that I was learning about put into practice. And just very like, there was no arguing. Clearly you're eating these foods that people might say are quote unquote unhealthy, right? But as long as you're doing it in moderation, yada, 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 all the things people have heard, you can still make the progress that you want to make, right? And it honestly motivated me to start doing full day of eating videos. But for me, I am very much so routine oriented, and like what I eat in a day for the most part is almost the same most days. And so I would only be able to do a few, and then I'd be like, you guys, it's oatmeal. I've had oatmeal every video for the past 20 full day of eatings. I don't know what to tell you, So
I made a there's a whole playlist of them. I made a while I was in Texas, I made a full day of eating video. It looks like my last one was 4 years ago, and then I made one like maybe two or 3 years ago, and it's just wild because like no one cared about them. Like the views were like so terrible, and it's one of those things you have to look back and be like, yeah, I appreciated that era of time, and I get why they were popular then, but yeah, I have no idea why people just loved watching me specifically eat food. I think it's again because I started getting goofy with it. I would make the goofiest concoctions, and I would make recipes of like the weirdest combinations of food. So it was more this like entertainment thing where it's like, can he hit his macros by adding sausage dip to every meal? It was like this weird thing I would do. So it was a good time.
Yeah. So, okay. So that kind of goes into the next question. So you were like the guy that would eat candy in his full day of eatings, right? And so I think you know what the next question is going to be. You're obviously the CEO, creator. I don't know what your title is, but Sour Strips, right? Like
founder.
You own a candy company.
Well, to give you an idea, is Dave eating number 5. I have the playlist up right here. Dave eating the video number 5, 10 years ago. Thumbnails were way better back then too. It was just like it could be anything.
Yeah.
Number 7 is my thumbnail is a picture of the entrance to Domino's. But number 5, 10 years ago, the thumbnail is a Diet Coke with lime and then a weight scale with a plate of Sour Patch Kids on it. So so I've been the candy guy for a minute.
Yeah, and so I'm sure that obviously informed your decision to make a candy company. Which, if you guys don't know, Sour Strips, they're everywhere. Literally the 7-Eleven. I'm annoyed with myself because I ran out of time because I was kind of busy this morning, but I wanted to get a bag because they sell them at the local 7-Eleven that's right next to my
That's good.
house.
We just went into 7-Eleven. So
I know. And so I wanted to get a bag, but like so I live with my brother and my sister-in-law, and they love Sour Strips. Like they're frequently they'll be at the house, and like
I'll send you a big box, dude.
Please do. I'd be stoked. They'd be stoked. But I remember the first time I saw them was in Target. At my local Target, they were selling them, and they were like gone though. Like you could not get them. I remember you were doing a thing when you were like having a bunch of people tag you. They'd buy a bunch and then they tag you. This is pretty smart.
The data, man.
Pretty smart, yeah. But so kind of going back, when did you decide to do that? And I remember when I first heard about it, in my head I was like, oh, like was like protein candy. And
That's
so, like,
thinks,
what made you not go down that route? Did you even think about going down, like, a protein fitness candy kind of thing? No? Okay.
No. Okay, look, and it's funny because I contradict myself a little bit, but I think there's no substitute for candy than candy. Mm-hmm. I think, I look at companies like even this girl, Tara Bosch, who started Smart Sweets. I think she's a pioneer in that space of candy alternative. I think she's so smart. I look up to her a lot, but that type of candy doesn't interest me at all. Mm-hmm. I'm like, but which is crazy because in my head, I'm like, if you want candy, eat candy. Don't try to eat something that's kind of like candy. But then I contradict because I'll eat Halo Top ice cream instead of regular ice cream, and I'll make sure I drink diet sodas. So the math doesn't math, but I've just been so to answer the question, I know going down the protein whatever was never ever even a thought in my head, period. But do you want to hear the kind of the story of how
I know you've probably told this story before, but yes, I would like to hear it.
That's good. I found ways to kind of somewhat cliff notes it. So I've been a candy fanatic like as long as I can remember. I mean, even when I was a kid and my dad was, starting to build this coffee shop in Roanoke, Virginia. I remember and I had to have been 7 at the time, but I remember always next door there was a 7-Eleven right there, and I would go in and I'd get packs of Fun Dip. I would get Sour Punch straws. I'd get sweet tarts. Like I love like the tartness, right? So I've just been a candy fiend my whole life. I mean, as a kid, I think every kid like loves candy, right? But I was on another level. I mean, and then when I went to college, I have a photo that I could pull up if you go to like on my Facebook albums of my first ever photo. I took a picture of like my mom bought me a bunch of stuff when I was going to college, and it was a bunch of like ramen and all this stuff. And there's a giant box of Sour Punch straws, blue ones. I used to get boxes of Sour Punch straws, like 24 packs of them from Costco. I would get them for Christmas because like people would give me candy for Christmas. Like this isn't some thing that I just found a way to make some money. I'm like, if there's ever been someone who is like loves candy, it's me, right? So flash forward to even when I'm, making YouTube videos, I was always the candy guy. I was, 10 years ago, I'm eating candy. And yeah, people do it, but I just kept eating it. And when I go to these expos, if you find any videos of me at expos, which you can find,
candy.
Yeah, you look in the background of the clips you see on my channel, you'll see mounds of bags of candy that people would just bring me because I was the candy guy, which like not by myself. I didn't dub myself that. And I would always tell people, oh, you got to get this candy. This candy is so good. Oh my God, I love candy. And I would just talk about candy all the time. So, okay, we've gotten past that. I love candy, right? But so then flash forward to when I'm about 29, 28, 29. So 6 years ago, like 5 years ago, my friend Christian Guzman, owner of Alpha Elite and 3D and a bunch of other, amazing businesses, Alpha Land and everything. He was the energy drink guy.
Yeah.
I think Christian Guzman single-handedly got the fitness game hooked on like White Monsters.
100%.
Because I remember
100%
going in the store. I'd never really drank energy drinks that much. I knew about Monster and all that stuff, but he was like, man, these White Monsters, White Monsters, White Monsters. Like one day I'm in there, I'm like, oh yeah, that Christian guy, like he drinks those. Like, let me try one. Oh shit, they're good. I was influenced, right? So he was the energy drink guy. I was the candy guy. And then when he started 3D and kind of went out into the consumer packaged goods, CPG space, it was like a whoa, bro, but that's a real product. We're fitness influencers. We make clothing and maybe some gym accessories and some fitness programs. We don't make real products that are out there, right?
That they sell in real stores. Like,
yeah, exactly.
We only make things you buy online or maybe a pop-up or something.
Yeah. And like nowadays, and for a very understandable reason, but like, now a lot of it's like the thing to do for influencers to come out with products that are in stores, whether it be makeup gurus or, Prime, Feastable, whatever, whoever, they come out with physical goods. But Christian and, me as well, but Christian is like kind of the early adopters of this. We kind of got in, we got Bitcoin at like $10, that's like kind of our phase we got in. So I saw him do this. He had some business partners and it kind of got it wasn't like this master plan. I was like, oh my God, if he can do it, I can do it too. It was just, he proved that it's possible. I was like, that's really crazy. And then I just had this idea. I was like, yeah, I think like a candy company. I think like I'm the candy guy. I feel like I'm someone. You ever see people like review like official food tasters or like food reviewers? And in my head, I'm always like that's just someone's opinion on food. How can they decide if a food's good or not in like a official way, right? How can someone rate a restaurant? It's just if they liked it or not. But I can understand it because I think that I'm that for candy. I think I know what good, specifically gummy and sour candy. I think I know the experience I want to have. I think I can like speak for the people who love sour gummy candy, what they love, what they hate, what they wish was different, the experience they have when they, from the way that the package looks, can they see the candy when they touch the candy? Does it, the way it, it sticks to your mouth, is it something that you can chew too fast or is it kind of a tougher chew? Like all this is going through my brain, right? So I'm like, I think I can create a brand and take all the things I love, take all the things I hate and make a little sour baby and create this brand. Cause I made a brand that was something that I would want to get. And so I came up with this idea and, kind of randomly put it out in the world. I did this whole Project XX kind of hype. And I think it was a flawless execution of a hype that some people were yelling at me because I talked about it like 6 months before the hype. And they're like, this is stupid, Max. You're talking about it way too far ahead. This is annoying, whatever. I was like, no, just I'm building it up. I'm doing it my way. I'm doing it the Max way, right? And I launched this brand. It happened to time out that I was able to launch it on my 30th birthday, and it was the rest is history, And yeah, it's a company that has taken over my life at the moment. It has done better than I ever could have imagined in a million years. And what's cool is that we're still working towards it every day, but I feel like it's really starting to be it's a real brand. It's a real household brand that has far surpassed me in ways I couldn't even explain. Like, I mean, it's and my goal from the beginning was to never have me as the main driving force of trying to get sales. Like, yeah, my audience, I'm going to try to convert them, and if people like sour candy, they're going to like this. But my goal, like, you'll notice a lot of other companies, and it's just a different strategy, right? But, I've never put my face on any marketing stuff. The bio of the brand has never said started by Maxx Chewning. You'll never see a truck with a graphic of sour strips and me like holding like a thumbs up. And maybe it's because I'm not as popular as some bigger people, but that was just never my intention. I was like, no, I want it to be, who cares if people know about me? I want them to like sour strips. So
yeah, that was one thing I wanted to ask you, because in my mind, it already has outgrown you. And
yeah,
the next question I was going to ask, but you kind of already answered it, was like, when did you realize that it? But you're kind of saying that it's like you're still.
Well, I guess so. When we launched the brand, and when I launched it, I knew it had to be, because I did all this prep work. I did all this efforts of building the hype up. I told people the exact price of what the surprise item was going to be, so they could mentally be prepared for the price of it, everything. And then I was like, it has to sell out immediately for this to work. Like, it can't take a week or two.
That's scary, man.
It has to sell out, or else this isn't going to be viable. And we launched with 20,000 units, and we sold out in an hour. And then I replenished that 20,000 units again, and 1 month later it sold out in 30 minutes. Then we launched 20,000 units again 1 month later, and then it started getting longer. So it started taking like 3 hours, and then like a day, and then we started being more in stock. And at that point, because at first it was everyone's minds were blowing that it was sold out, right? But then when it didn't sell out in the first day, I started seeing comments of like, "Yep, hype's over, brand's gonna die," all this stuff, and it didn't. It didn't. And I think it was the success of sour strips. You could categorize it with a lot of things, but I still don't play dumb and think that I am this super guru wizard of knowing how to do everything. I think it was a good idea, a great execution out of the gate with the proper audience and the proper person to launch it. Then it I don't want to associate the word lucky and COVID at the same time, but no one could have predicted COVID, which happened to be like very soon after we launched, which then just rocketed our brand awareness and online sales like through the roof, and everyone's at home. So then our socials grew like crazy because of COVID, which we could have never imagined. And then when COVID started going down, because we'd already built up this like awareness of the brand, then retailers started hearing about us, and retailers reached out to us. And, we've never approached any retailer that we're in, which is not common at all. Every single people work their whole careers, 5-10 years to try to get into these major retailers like Target, Walmart. And we were having both of them email us on the same day. Jeez. Like, so I don't like to act like I'm some wizard. I know a lot about a little. But I think a lot of it is just, you did the right thing at the right time, and you did everything as it happened to work out. And it's still surprising, bro. We started sour strips in a room like this big, and then we grew to like 1,000 square feet, and then we just moved into 63,000 square feet. Jeez. Mind-blowing size warehouse.
Yeah.
Crazy.
I remember when obviously I heard about it when it first launched, but then when for me, and I'm sure everyone's a little bit different, but for me, when I saw it in Target, I was like, what the heck? Like,
It's real at that point, right?
And I saw it in Target, but also I didn't because they were sold out. You know what I mean? And so it took a few times before I went in and I saw it and I was actually able to get some. And yeah, that was just, I just remember thinking like, this is crazy. Like I was almost like, who did he sell his soul to? All right. How did this, like, how is this happening? Cause again, it was like in my head, yeah, like I come from the old guard of YouTube where everyone did put their name on it. And like, that's how you kind of sold stuff. And you like, was that a decision right at the start that you knew, like, I don't want it to be like associated with me or?
Yeah, 1000%. That I didn't have some sort of master plan with Sour Strips. It was just, again, just things kept happening and I kept adapting. And again, I don't have a business. I have a lot of friends in the industry that I've taken advice from. But I own 100% of the company. Wow. I don't have any investors. I don't have a partner that is in the, in the confectionery candy space that's guiding me. I don't have that. So it's been just kind of like an interesting ride. And, I mean, every day I'm blown away by the success and the growth of it. But I also, I think when people look at Sour Strips and they see, when I talk about the growth of it, they think that I'm super confident about it all the time. But I think I'm a very like kind of get in my own head person where I'm like, there's no way it can keep going this well. Like it's gotta come down at any point, which, if my employees hear that, that's probably not what they want to hear, and like me, but like, that's just, I'm always like, this has got to end soon. Like this can't keep growing. There's no way, not with me, not me. And so I try to stay very down to earth and humble about it and not get cocky that we're just the best of ever. But, at the end of the day, I looked at the industry of the candy and I said, I know what good candy is. And I know what packaging will make people go, what is that? Like, let me check it out. Right. And I was like, why can't there be a new brand that is the brand? Like, because when you buy something from a lot of these other companies, there's no there's no connection to it. So if not only is the product great, right, which is, it has to be, but I kind of look at it as if someone's going to go in and they know that this is like a person trying to maybe go up against these giant conglomerates, I'd rather buy from that person than these companies that you have there's no connection to them. They're a bunch of people in, suits and high rise, office buildings. And I felt like the industry just needed a refresh, because I would look at the advertising, the branding, and I'm like, who approved this? Like a bunch of people who are not actual, and like, I know it's a bunch of older people. And I'm like, I think I can bring a refreshing kind of wave to the candy world. And there's a lot of doubt myself, and a lot of doubt from other people. And we're still here. And I just signed a 3-year lease for a 60,000 square foot building. So it has to keep working for at least 3 more years,
I hope you guys enjoyed this ad for Sour Strip. No, I'm just kidding. And so, okay. So kind of switching gears, you also have your own podcast, right?
Yes.
And Don't Be Sour. Right, for anyone that doesn't know, what was the reason that you were like, I want to do podcasts. I want to kind of like talk to people.
I think I mentioned it in a video, but like what was going through my head was more sometimes I have this weird thing where if I get so busy and overwhelmed, part of me is just like, I think I should add something else to my plate. Like I think why not just add it to my plate? I don't really know, because I talked about it on my YouTube of like, I'm thinking about starting this podcast and this show. And I even kind of hyped the podcast up similarly. I told people I was doing a podcast, but the thing that I hid was the name. I was like, I'm not gonna tell you the name. Okay. I'm not gonna tell you the name. I'm building a studio, check studio out. I'm not telling you the name. What's the name? So yeah, I think the podcast was something that like, I think how it happened is because the office that I had, which was at Alphaland, which is a amazing gym in Houston. Everyone should come. It's like a mecca. I rented space from Christian in that building, and I had this like conference room, this really nice big conference room. But there's only I only had like 4 employees at that office, so we never ended up using the conference room because we would just sit on the couches out in the like our TV area, have our meetings. But I was like, oh, I need a conference room, so I had this big empty space and this big old table, and in my head I was like, maybe I could just turn this into like a little studio. I could turn this into a little podcast thing, and I'm just like, all right, I already make videos. I already talk a lot. I do these long Q&As. Like I could sit down and talk to people. And I thought it was just going to be like another way for people to get content from me on a different type of level, maybe a little calmer, maybe a little longer format. And in my head, it was like, oh, I don't use the word easy lightly, but it's a much different dynamic to sit down and film a podcast than it is to plan out a vlog, even though I'm filming my life, but I still have to think about what I'm going to film. Where I consider, after doing both for a long time, much longer vlogs, I think doing a podcast is substantially less effort and easier than vlogging, like substantially. And as someone who's done both, I think I have the right to be able to make that claim. And I edit my own podcasts. I set up, I set the studio up. I do it all. And it's just, sometimes I like adding more to my plate, but I've really, really been enjoying it. I think that everyone who starts podcast will get to because most people quit, and I understand why, because everyone who wants to interview other people, you're going to hit a wall at some point where you got no one else. Yeah. And something that, so I'm on episode, I think I just put up like 65, but I wanted to show people that I could, when I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to commit to it. Even though I gave up on like playing piano and stuff and in my channel, but I was like, look, I'm gonna put a bunch of money into this studio because I'm gonna go one of two ways. I either build it up as I go, or I go balls to the wall and financially obligate myself to like make it work. And I think no one can look at my podcast and look at the amount of guests that I did and how much I traveled last year to go fly to guests all over and set up the studio by myself sometimes, that I was dedicated to like delivering this content. And it's been something that's been very enjoyable for me, but now I've essentially run out of my Rolodex of people. And I've also learned that I think it's an important thing to take is when you start a new venture, I think, especially with podcasts, people think they want to get a bunch of big names or whatever. But when you don't have those big names, you want those people. It's like how people came for my deadlift and stayed for my dumb jokes, right? Yeah. You want people to come to your podcast. Like, yeah, they came because you had a cool guest that they like, but they keep coming back to the other episodes that don't have that guest because of the host, right? There's a reason why Joe Rogan can film with these random ass people. It's because they like Joe Rogan. They don't like that he has these crazy, Mark Cuban every time, or, Mike Tyson or something, right? So when I ran through my whole Rolodex of individuals, I was like, the episodes that I thought I would film with these big name people, and some of them just wouldn't get the views, and I just couldn't understand. I was like, what like, I don't understand. But I'd film with my friend Joe, and that would get more views than filming with Graham Stephan, who's like a huge finance person. I'm like, how is this making sense? So I realized, I was like, I think people kind of just like my inner circle as more like, I should focus on making it entertaining rather than just I'm an interviewer. So long-winded answer. I'm really enjoying the podcast. And now I've kind of, while I still will interview new people, I've taken a lot of stress off my plate. And now I'm just it's turning into just chatting with my friends. Yeah. Which is great because that's even easier for me.
And like, I can say that obviously like your friends are also people that a lot of people are interested in, like hearing like I think about the recent one with Christian, and he obviously, I don't want to go into too much, but like he shared some very personal stuff on that podcast.
That episode did way better. Christian always has like the golden touch of his, like, it was kind of like you put Christian in a thumbnail, your videos do better kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, that podcast did way better than I thought it would.
Yeah. And so I think that, that makes sense, and not being too stressed about it, because so I had a podcast for years with my brother, but it was more like CrossFit focused. Like we had,
your brother's name is also John, right?
Jean.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so that's a whole long story, but we used to talk about it all the time, joke about it on the podcast. But I had,
you ever go to your parents? You're like, guys, you couldn't think of any other name?
Seriously. everyone in my family calls me John David because of that. Like,
yeah.
But one of the reasons we stopped was because we became too stressed about feeling like we always have to have a guest. And we often would do them on our own, but we just always felt like it wasn't enough. But the thing is that we would have so many people that just were like, I love when we would call it the Glaudecast when it was just us, right? And they would really like that. And so that's why with this podcast,
that's a good name, the Glaudecast.
Yeah. It was like if he ever has the time, but now he is the most busy person on the face of the earth. Like he has 2 kids, but like that's why with this one, I started with 2 podcasts where I didn't have a guest at all, which was very strange for me because I was literally just talking to no one. Which my videos basically are that, but like usually there's a specific video I'm talking about, or it was just me talking, and it was the weirdest thing at first, but I've allowed myself to be like every once in a while having those just so I'm not like feeling like I always have to have a guest. But yeah, I don't know, like
bro, as someone who has, I think I'm halfway through your second one, I've watched both of them, and
that's crazy, man.
To be honest, like as someone who is a consumer of content like that, what I enjoy about those is that it's like it what it does is I think it makes you realize that everyone's just another person, right? And even though, and I still get in my head because every video I feel like I'm like, I don't know what to film. Everyone's like, just literally film. Like we literally just want you to film like anything. It doesn't matter. And even like, I feel like you probably get in your head, and I would if I was filming of like, this is, people don't want to hear about this, or this is boring. This is repetitive. I've talked about this before, but like, that's what I think humans just want to hear about other experiences from people who they either can relate to, or there's someone who's just like normal, and there's always like unique things about each individual, whether it be personal, your past, or maybe, business stuff, or your personality or something. But like everyone has that little unique thing, and just hearing someone talk about random shit that is somewhat relevant to a lot of other people is, I think, a lot more entertaining than, hearing the story of how the Rock, came with $7 in his pocket. It's like
for the 20th time,
it's like, he's told that story. So I think just hearing people talk about random topics that might seem dumb to the person talking about them, that's what people want. Prime example, I've filmed past 4 episodes. Well, not with Christian, but it's just been like goofy. Like how I film my podcast now is I could be brushing my teeth. I could be doing anything. I'll have the things that go on in my brain, like the questions that come up in my head of whatever is people should be able to pay to live in my head for like a day, because they probably want to escape. But like I will just be doing anything, and I'll have this random thought, and I have a whole list in my phone of like topics, and it's like the most random things. It could be about Starbucks. Like, so I could be going through the drive-thru at Chick-fil-A and being like an example is like when I go to Chick-fil-A and the line is so damn long in the drive-thru, and I look inside and there's no one in there. So I'm like, oh, I'm going to park. I'm going to go inside because it's going to be much faster. And then I go inside and it's so slow because the drive-thru, and in my head, I'm like, it should be 2 separate things. I shouldn't have to wait longer when I'm inside for the outside people. And I'm like, and I write these little things down because I'm like, I think this is stuff that goes on in people's heads of like, there's no one in here. Why am I waiting so long for the drive-thru people? I'm an inside person. And it's like things that just are real. It's like, look at Curb Your Enthusiasm, the show. I think it's the most relatable, funny show ever because it's real stuff. So whenever these like random, I could be walking into Lowe's and something, and I'm like, oh, well, that's stupid. And I'm like, oh wait, that's a topic. Oh, like I write it down. Like it's so any weird thought, and then I talk about them in the podcast with other people who have different views on it, and it's like boom. That's what people want to hear, I think.
Dude,
Chick-fil-A drive-thru lines.
You brought that up, and it makes me think of there's a Starbucks next to me that sometimes I'll see the line will be like out and it's like literally in the street. And so I'm like, I'm going to go inside. I almost, something about me, I almost never go through drive-thrus. I like to get out and walk into the store. I don't know why. It's just how I've always been.
Yeah, I don't want to get out of my car because I want to keep my YouTube video that I'm listening to. Keep going.
Okay. Yeah. So for me, I'll go in, but I worked at Starbucks for a while, and we had a drive-thru, and it's very like the time is very important. And so like, it was when I worked there, the drive-thru is more important, priority, drive-thru. And so every time I'm like, oh, that line is so long, I'm going to go in, it's going to be fast. Nope. I'm waiting 30 minutes and there's 2 people in front of me. And it's the most frustrating thing because I watch the drive-thru and there's 12 cars have gone through.
See, this is stuff people don't talk about. It's like when you go to Chipotle and there's like 3 people in line, but the person making the food has 17 Uber Eats orders, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, what? Like, dude, why? Like, this is ridiculous. It's like, that is the stuff because it's real, it's relatable stuff. And like that is like, I would rather hear someone, like, example, you used to work at Starbucks. Now with all this stuff about tip culture and how at Starbucks has the tip thing for the drink, that'd be an interesting viewpoint as someone who worked there. Do you think that you should get tips at the drive-thru, for example? Do you think tip culture is getting out of control as someone who used to work for tips? Do you think that the like flipping the iPad around, tipping before you even get the drink to know if it's even good that you should tip? Like, I think, and if you were working the drive-thru, could you see if someone tipped or not? And does that change the way you like are going to interact with? See, that'd be something that I would be interesting to hear about. That like, you might be like, oh, that's a dumb topic or dumb thought. Like I think the more low level, realistic, day-to-day thoughts that you have in your head about like things you see out are, I think, more entertaining than you probably think of. Like if you were to talk about them. Yep.
100%. So what you're saying is the next podcast is going to be you out in the street, just going up to random like service workers and asking them questions about tips.
No, bro. I want to even like, I wish I could read some of these like topics that, again, I have a whole, and I even have like solo. If I have like with other people, let's see, it's like, oh, like the other day with Taylor, my fiance, I'm starting to notice that I'm getting like a little bit more gray hairs on the side. As soon as I said that, I wrote down getting gray hair. That's a good thing to talk about.
I noticed my first one actually like a week ago.
And I was watching podcasts, I think like maybe Impulsive or something, where they have, or like a lot of times I think Celsius, the energy drink, sponsors a bunch of podcasts and they have like a million cans in the background, but I don't do that. I'm like I think that's kind of strange to just have these like products all over the place. So I just like, I write down like all this random. Yeah. To see now it's like, I don't have any good examples, but random topics.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying them.
Yeah. No, I believe you, but all right. I think that's a good spot to end. I really appreciate you coming on here. This went like so much better than I had, because I again, this was my first one that I've done a podcast in a very long time. First one on this actual like podcast. So I genuinely appreciate it. This was a lot of fun for me to do, and I'm like can't wait. Literally, right when we're done with this, I'm going to edit it and get it up. So I can't wait for people to listen and hopefully they enjoy it. Like, yeah.
I hope. The only thing I'm pissed off is I hope the quality looks better, because like I'm filming on a really nice camera, and what I'm looking at of me on this, I'm like, man,
yeah.
And you know what? High quality conversations, potentially low quality Maxx camera. Yeah. We'll get it all sorted out.
It's not anything you did. I think it might be a Zoom problem, but
it was a good conversation, man. I think, and especially as it continued on, it's like just organic, random, natural conversations, I think, are the best. So my best advice for even the podcast stuff is don't overthink about it. And the things you think are the dumbest things that no one wants to hear about is exactly what people want to hear about.
Cool. Well, thank you so much. I don't know. I would say like, where are you at? But I think most people know, but I don't know. Is there anything you want to plug? I feel like we've talked about most of the things, but
the thing I always plug is, if you liked the content you saw from me, my personality, I'm available on the internet in a lot of different ways, from podcasts to vlogs to Instagram. I own a couple cool brands, but come fall in love with the videos. And if you choose to support after that, that's great. But I always just come check out the vlogs.
There you go.